Hello students, welcome to AskPrep. So we are going to start with the lesson number 3 today, in which we are going to talk about the diverse range of plants around us. We have already spoken about the classification, general, and then we spoke about the kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, fungi, and now we'll come to kingdom Plantae. We will cover only kingdom Plantae in this chapter, its characteristic, its classification and all. So in case of any doubts and queries, please reach out to us through the comment section and let us know more about it. So let's get started. So in this chapter, we are going to talk about the diversity of the green world. Green world is, why is the name green given to it? Because we know that the plants are the autotrophs and they produce their own food with the help of chlorophyll in it, right? So starting with the kingdom Plantae. So what type of organisms are there? So they are multicellular, eukaryotic organism, photosynthetic organism. So this entire kingdom, they are the photosynthetic in nature. Though there are some exceptions also, it is not always 100% that all the organism falling in the same kingdom, they will have the similar characteristics. So there are some certain changes also here. So we'll talk about it. They use an autotrophic mode of nutrition, that is making their own food. As we have just discussed, due to the presence of chlorophyll in the leaves, generally they appear green in color and hence perform photosynthesis. The byproduct of which is oxygen, which is very, very important for us, our survival and all the animal kingdoms. So that is why they are the vitals or the backbones for the survival of the entire life form on the earth, right? So ranging from the habitat, they are found everywhere on the earth, be it the Arctic cold regions, be it the xerophytic areas or the aquatic areas or the terrestrial areas. So the plants are found everywhere. But the general characteristic, they keep on changing as they keep on changing their ecosystem, their environment. So that is how they keep on adapting to the various environment. Talking about the mode of nutrition besides photosynthesis, we know that certain plants, that they are insectivorous also, they undergo heterotrophic mode of nutrition. We have studied about Venus flytrap, the pitcher plant, and etc. So what do? They open up and they are quite fancy, the looking leaves of the plant, and then when the insects also get attracted by it, the moment they sit on the leaves snap shut and trapping the insect inside, thus releasing digestive juices and ingesting on the organism or on the insect, and thus taking the nutrition from that. In case of Cuscuta, which is a parasitic plant, it does not undergo photosynthesis, it survives on the other plants. So it is a parasitic plant, and this is another mode of heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So these are a few exceptions that the plants, they do not, these are the plants that do not undergo autotrophic mode of nutrition. Talking about the reproduction is both asexual manner and sexual manner is seen in the plants depending on the variety. Asexual manner is also called as the vegetative mode of reproduction, ranging from the stem, roots, and even the leaves. In certain plants it is seen that the multiplication is done by the help of the leaves itself. With this stem, we have seen it a very common example at homes also. Rose plant is a very, very good example for this. कि उसका एक stem लेके you take a cutting and sow it in a pot, right? So and then it eventually grows up into the new plant. Roots के साथ भी हमने बहुत बार देखा, you uproot a portion of a plant and then sow it in a separate pot and then it starts growing into the new plant. So these are the vegetative mode of reproduction. The other modes of reproduction are in which multiplies by spores, seeds, and the cones also, right? the growth in these are continuous, and like in animals, what happens after attaining a certain height, the growth stops, and they eventually keep on developing over the period of time. But in the plant cases, they grow up. The growth is intermediate. It may not always be the apical growth. It may be the lateral growth also, but the growth is a continuous process. And after attaining a certain height, the speed slows, but it is continuous throughout. Talking about the classification, what type of plants are here? And as we have discussed in the previous chapter, कि जैसे जैसे एवोल्यूशन होता गया वैसे वैसे हमने क्लासिफिकेशन वी हैव स्टडीड द क्लासिफिकेशन. नाउ देयर इज अ सेंटेंस व्हिच इज रिटन ओवर द टॉप, द बेस्ट प्लांट्स ग्रो अमेजिंगली, राइट? व्हाई इज इट रिटन देयर? वी विल टॉक अबाउट इट आफ्टर वी talk about the various classification. So starting from the Thallophyta. Thallophyta are the very basic and simple plants. These are the lower plants that includes algae, lichens and mosses, right? So इसमें कोई भी categorically stem, leaves ऐसे करके नहीं है. They are the very very simple plants and not very long heighted, not very demarcated, right? So they are very simple plants and they are one of the primitive plants. Coming down to Bryophyta. Bryophyta are also known as the amphibian of the plant kingdom. This is a very important point to remember. Why are they called the amphibians of the plant kingdom? See, they are present on the terrestrial area, but for their reproduction, they need water as a medium. अब plants का हमें पता है, they are immobile. They cannot move from one place to another, right? So these Bryophytas, they are present somewhere near the water, right? Especially जैसे कि marshy areas, river beds, bank of the rivers, and so on. ठीक है? So ऐसे environment में they thrive so that they're both their survival as well as their reproduction is taken care of. These are also non-vascular plants. Non-vascular means vascular का मतलब जहां पर भी आता है, we know it is, we are talking about the xylem and the phloem, right? So xylem and phloem are the vascular bundles in the plant that helps in conduction of minerals and water and the food, right? So these again, the Bryophytes are also again the non-vascular type of plants जिसके अंदर mosses and liverworts आते हैं. That means again the smaller type of plants are seen here. Next category we come to the Pteridophyta. They are the first plants to have the vascular system. यहाँ से vascular system दिखना शुरू हो जाता है. As we have talked about earlier, that we are gradually talking about the evolution. So Pteridophytes are the ones where the vascular system come into its function, right? Reproduction is by the pores and they do not produce flowers and seed like the ferns. Ferns are the example of the Pteridophytes. They are used many places, at homes and at commercial places for the ornamental purposes, right? अब they do not produce flowers or the seeds, ठीक है? तो इनके pores होते हैं जिनकी वजह से they multiply, right, by themselves. But again, यहाँ पर since they attain a little height, so that is how the vascular system is started appearing here. Next, we are coming to the gymnosperm. Gymnosperms, take an example of the pine. First of all, pine, whenever we go to the hilly areas, we have observed that वो pine cones होते हैं, right? So these pine cones are one of the seeds, the naked seeds of these plants, right? So these plants have the naked seeds. They also do not bear fruits or the flowers. There is no fruit or ovary or the flowers seen here. So cycas and the pines, the variety of the pines, they fall under this gymnosperms category. Last of all is the angiosperms, जो कि largest group है, large and the widest group, because हमारे around there are a whole lot of plants that bear flowers, that have fruits, whether it is edible or not, but a large variety of plants we know which are around us. So these all fall under the category of angiosperms, right? So angiosperms are, as the example, we have taken the mangoes and the rose. So if we compare mango to rose, rose falls under the category of shrubs. That means it is short and woody, whereas mangoes, they fall under the category of trees. That means they are thick and branched, right? So we can imagine the variety of plants that fall under these categories under the classification of angiosperms. So these are the 5 main categories that we need to observe under this category of under the classification. Now coming down to the sentence which is written on the top, the best plant grow amazingly. This is the one sentence that you can remember to remember the classification. So if you relate it with the classification, T is for Thylophyta, B is for Bryophyta, P for Pteridophyta, G, gymnosperms, A is for angiosperms. So with this one statement, you can remember the entire classification very easily and in the proper manner. So all you need to remember is you just have to grow evolutionary wise, and then you remember the names, because sometimes we find these names very confusing, right? So this is much more easier to remember it in this way, right? Let's go ahead to the life cycle. There are the 2 stages which are seen in the life cycle of plants, which keep on going on and eventually helps in reproduction and spreading up of more and multiplication and spreading the diversity, right? Haploid, which is always denoted by N. It is the stage in which gametes are formed. So that means the gametes are present here, the sperm and the eggs separately. So these are the haploid gametes, right? But when they fuse together, then they form 2N. So this N and this N is individually, that is, these are haploid. But when they both come together, then they form 2N, right? Which is called the diploid, right? Diploid stage. And then after that, the meiosis happen and the cell division takes place, and due to which the multiplication of number happens, right? So this is a very important point to remember. What is a haploid stage and what is a diploid stage? Haploid with single gametes, and when they fuse together to form the zygote, the zygotic stage is the 2N, that is the diploid stage. Talking about the adaptations, we have spoken about that these plants, they exist in every possible place. Aquatic areas में present है, xerophytic areas में present है, water के ऊपर surface पे है, अंदर है, and some are otherwise free living also. So they need something in their system that helps them to survive in the extreme condition. So let's talk about the xerophytes. Xerophytic area is the one which is the desert area. We know it with the desert area also. अब यहाँ कौन सा plant है? When we talk about the plant, immediately the cactus flashes up in front of our eyes कि okay, yes, we are talking about the cactus. Now what is so special in the cactus? अब we know that all the plants, they bear the leaves, और वो leaves are green in color, and thus they undergo photosynthesis. So leaves are also called the kitchen of the plants because क्योंकि वो photosynthesis करते हैं. But in these cases, cactus के अंदर the stem is woody, instead of woody, it is flashy and it is green, right? एक तो number 1, they have to survive in the extreme heat. Number 2, they have to conserve the water for itself. And number 3, it has to protect its water from the animals that are living in that area, so that इनका ऊपर, if they keep on grazing, the plants तो survive ही नहीं करेंगे, right? So इसीलिए the adaptation in these cases is the leaves are adapted into the thorns. So whenever any animal see a nice green fleshy juicy stem that it can take it, so these are the thorns which prick there in the face, and then these animals, they get retracted away, right? They do not go closer to it. So तभी That is one of the adaptation, the presence of thorns. Number 2, the stem performs the function of photosynthesis. It is green in color, chlorophyll present है, so वहां से photosynthesis हो रही है. Number 3, the storage is also done by the stem. Right? So here a lot of adaptations we get to see because of the current environment that they are surviving in. Number 2, coming to the hydrophytes. Hydrophytes, we've taken the example of lotus. Lotus के अंदर क्या है? Lotus, the leaves, they have to float on the water, right? Now, if you want to make something float on the water, तो उसको क्या होना चाहिए? It has to be lighter, filled with air. So the leaves, they have the good pockets which are filled with the air and thus making it much more lighter so that it floats, right? जो कि पानी के अंदर रह के खराब नहीं हो, and it gets its proper share of oxygen and the nutrients that is required, right? So that is why they float on the water and easily survive. Epiphytes, a very good example here is the orchids. Orchids को अगर आप, if you try to plant it in the soil, they won't grow. So orchids' nature is they grow on the other trees. They take the oxygen and the nutrients from the other plant and they take it from the air directly. So they they start growing on the other plant. So that is a different characteristic which is seen in the orchid. So that's, अब orchids कहाँ present है? It is generally present near the marshy areas because वहां इतना सारा पानी होता है तो orchids को survival मुश्किल है. So that is why they have made the adaptation that they start growing on the other plants and take their nutrients from there, right? Now talking about the importance. We all know that plants are the basis of the life form on the earth, right? They undergo photosynthesis and essential for all the life on the earth. Now they are the primary producers of the food chain. कोई भी food chain अगर आप ले लो, कोई भी food ecosystem की बात करें तो they form the base of each ecosystem, right? अगर plants नहीं होंगे तो herbivores कैसे रहेंगे, and then herbivores के बाद eventually the carnivores and so on. So they form the basis of all the ecosystem. They are essential for all the ecosystems, whether you talk about the terrestrial or you talk about the aquatic. पानी के अंदर we all know that there are ample amount of plants, right, which are the food for the many organisms which live in the water, the aquatic. Besides the food, they also serve a great, they also are the great resources of timber, fiber and medicines, right? So we do get timber from the plants. Medicinal value बहुत है plants की. We all know that कितनी medicines हैं जो plants से ही बनती हैं. And fiber, of course, all the sustainable fibers that we get from the plants, the cottons, linen, flax and all, so on. So they are directly, we are getting it from the plants itself. Now, also, the importance is in the absorption of carbon dioxide. We all know about the global warming. It is extending to a large amount nowadays. But जैसे जैसे ये global warming है, this global warming's effect is much lesser in the cases where the plantation is more, right? So इसीलिए plants absorb carbon dioxide and thus reducing the carbon dioxide from the environment and reducing the effect of global warming. Besides those, agriculture is also one of the major role that the plants play. We all are dependent on agriculture. It is not only the vegetables, the fruits, but the pulses, the oils, the pulses, the oils, the cereals and fabric, fibers that we get. So every possible thing that we consume, that we wear, that is essential for our survival, that it is from the plants itself. So that is why we always say that there is no survival without the plants. So medicinal value we have just discussed. एस्थेटिक वैल्यू, दे ऑलवेज एड चार्म. अगर किसी भी रूम में you place 2-3 plants, beautiful plants, ornamental plants in that room, it adds more aesthetic value. And who doesn't like to go in a park and take a stroll around? It always refreshes you, right? So the use of these ornamental plants and the parks, it is always refreshing, and it always has the aesthetic values to our lives, right? So in the end, these are the backbones of the life on the earth, and they provide resources and sustainable living. Understanding their diversity help us appreciate and protect nature. So it is the time for us to understand that there is no survival without the plants, and to protect them is our foremost important job. Right? So with this, we come to the end of this chapter. We have studied about the classification, about the diverse range of plants that are present, about their characteristics, about the adaptations, and so on. So we'll see you in the next lesson. Do let us know in the comment section if you have any queries, then reach out to us. Thank you.